Hi everyone! Today we're going somewhere deep. Not in a heavy way, but in a liberating, life-changing way. Because the truth is this, you don't manifest from your intentions. You manifest from the child you once were. The version of you that learned what love felt like, what safety felt like, what receiving felt like. The version of you that made silent agreements with the world, agreements you don't even realize are still running your life. If you've ever wondered why you can visualize, affirm, pray, meditate, and still feel blocked, stuck, or not chosen by the universe, this video will finally make everything make sense. Today, we're going to talk about how childhood wounds shape your manifestation frequency, how they secretly influence your money, your relationships, your opportunities, and how you can rewire these patterns to create from a new identity, one that feels safe to receive everything you desire. This is one of the most important videos I've ever created, not because it's nice, but because it's the truth that finally set me free. And before we begin, if you want to go even deeper into healing the emotional patterns that keep you repeating your past, I recommend Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I'll leave the link in the first pinned comment for you. Take a breath, and let's begin. 1. The invisible blueprint, how your childhood programs your frequency. There's a moment in every spiritual journey when you realize something almost unsettling, that most of your adult life is not being lived by your adult self. It's being lived by the child you once were. The child who was watching, absorbing, trying to make sense of a world that felt too big, too loud, too confusing, or too unpredictable. And here's the truth most people never hear. Your manifestation frequency was shaped long before you ever tried to manifest anything. Not in your 20s, not when you discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza, not when you started meditating or visualizing or journaling. Your frequency was being built in the earliest years of your life, in the moments you barely remember, in the emotions you learned to swallow, in the silence you were forced to adapt to, and in the interpretations your child mind created to survive. Because from birth to around age 7, your brain was in theta state, the exact same state used in hypnosis. You weren't analyzing life, you were absorbing it. You weren't logically understanding what was happening, you were energetically encoding it. Everything felt personal, everything felt true, everything became your blueprint. And that blueprint, those early emotional imprints, still shape the frequency you send out today. The childhood field you don't remember, but still live in. If you think about it, children don't have the ability to rationalize, Mom is stressed because she has financial problems. Dad is distant because he never learned to express affection. People criticize me because they're carrying their own wounds. No, children interpret everything as, something must be wrong with me. I need to behave differently to feel safe. Love has conditions. I shouldn't need too much. I have to earn attention. Being myself isn't fully accepted. Frequencies that later become behaviors, and those behaviors later become patterns, and those patterns later become, my life always goes this way. But it never started in adulthood. It always began with a feeling the child was never able to process. The body remembers what the mind forgot. You can tell yourself, I want to be wealthy. I want a healthy relationship. I want abundance. I want emotional stability. But if the frequency stored in your body says, love is not safe, it's dangerous to relax, success makes people leave, I am too much, I am not enough, then your manifestations won't land. Not because you're broken, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the unconscious child inside you is still trying to protect you the only way it learned how. Your adult mind is trying to expand, but your inner child is trying to survive. And survival always wins over expansion until you heal what trained you to shrink. my own childhood blueprint and how it followed me into adulthood. Every time I talk about this topic, I remember the moment I realized how deeply my childhood had shaped my frequency. There were parts of me that always felt like I had to do everything alone, work twice as hard to be seen, avoid depending on anyone, stay strong even when breaking inside, minimize my needs so I wouldn't burden people. Those weren't adult beliefs. They were childhood survival strategies. They were formed in small moments, moments where I felt unheard, or where love felt inconsistent, or where stability depended on my emotional silence. So guess what happened in adulthood? I became hyper-independent. I attracted relationships where I overgave and received little. I had a deep fear of asking for help, and energetically, that created this frequency. I have to do everything alone. Support isn't available for me. Love requires effort and performance. Money comes only through struggle. It wasn't conscious, it was embodied, and it blocked manifestations for years. But the moment I began healing those childhood wounds, the moment I started giving that inner child what she never received, everything shifted. I manifested more abundance. I attracted a loving, emotionally present relationship. I stopped settling for half love and half support. I started experiencing ease in areas where I had only known struggle. Because when the wound heals, the frequency changes. And when the frequency changes, the external reality must follow. Your childhood still speaks through your frequency today. Even if you've grown, even if you're successful, even if you're spiritual, conscious, self-aware, there is a part of you, your younger self, still guiding your vibration. Childhood wounds don't show up as memories. They show up as anxiety before receiving love, feeling guilty for wanting more, choosing partners who replicate your parents, pushing abundance away, sabotaging relationships, fear of being seen, perfectionism, self-criticism, chronic overthinking, difficulty trusting, feeling unworthy of good things. These are not adult problems. They are childhood frequencies echoing into adult life. And you can't manifest a new reality while living inside an old emotional frequency. You can't create abundance while your inner child is afraid of having needs. You can't create love while your inner child expects abandonment. You can't create success while your inner child believes visibility isn't safe. Your conscious mind desires expansion. Your subconscious child desires protection. And until both want the same thing, manifestation feels like pushing a boulder uphill. This is why healing your childhood is the first step to manifesting. You don't manifest from the adult you pretend to be. You manifest from the emotional identity you formed as a child. And that child, your younger self, is not your enemy. She is not broken. She is not blocking you because she wants to sabotage your dreams. She is protecting you using outdated instructions. And when you finally understand that, you stop blaming yourself and you start healing the part of you that still believes the world works the way it did when you were 6. This video will show you how to rewrite that frequency, how to reconnect with the child who shaped your vibration, and how to manifest from a healed identity, not a wounded one. Because your future can't be built from the frequency of your past, and in the next blocks, I'll show you exactly how to change it. 2. The 3 core childhood wounds that distort your manifestation frequency. When people think about manifestation, they often focus on techniques, visualizing, journaling, scripting, repeating affirmations. But manifestation is not about what you say you want. It's about what your body has been trained to expect. And nothing trains your body more deeply than the emotional wounds you absorbed in childhood. It's not your fault. You didn't choose these wounds. They were built silently, in the moments you didn't even realize your nervous system was learning how life works. But if you don't become conscious of them, they keep shaping your reality as an adult. In my own journey, I didn't understand why I was doing everything right and still felt blocked financially, emotionally, and energetically. It wasn't until I started healing these wounds that my life finally opened. So as I describe each one, notice which one speaks to your body, not your mind. 1. The worthiness wound. I'm not enough, I don't deserve it. This is one of the most common childhood imprints and also one of the most invisible. It doesn't show up as a thought, it shows up as a pattern. You delay taking action, you minimize your dreams, you stop yourself right before things work. You never fully receive what you want, even when it's already in your hands. People with the worthiness wound don't consciously believe they're undeserving, but the body remembers growing up feeling not seen, not valued, not considered, not celebrated, not emotionally held. So as adults, when abundance or love appears, the nervous system goes into conflict. I want this, but something inside me believes I'm not the kind of person who gets to have it. This wound creates a manifestation ceiling, a level of good you subconsciously allow before self-sabotage pulls you back into familiar patterns. I remember the moment I realized I had this wound. Every time a financial opportunity came, I would feel excitement for a minute, and then anxiety. I felt guilty for wanting more. I felt like I had to justify every blessing. I thought I needed to earn abundance through struggle. And that's when it clicked. Abundance wasn't blocked by the universe, it was blocked by the emotional identity built in childhood. When I began healing this wound, my manifestation frequency shifted dramatically. When you feel worthy, receiving becomes natural. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. 2. The safety wound. It's dangerous to have more. This wound forms when a child grows up in environments where instability, conflict, criticism, or unpredictability were common. Your nervous system learns one core rule: safety comes first, expansion comes second. So even if you consciously want wealth or love, your subconscious believes, if I have more, I'll have more to lose. If I stand out, I'll attract criticism. If life gets too good, something bad will follow. This wound doesn't block your manifestations, it protects you from them. It keeps you in a small, controlled, predictable life. And the most painful part, you don't even realize you're doing it. It feels responsible or logical or not the right time. This wound shows up physically: tight chest, overthinking, procrastination, perfectionism, fear of visibility, fear of committing to dreams. I had this wound deeply. Every time something good started happening, I would brace myself, like I needed to prepare for impact. I thought it was intuition. It wasn't. It was trauma. Once I healed the safety wound, I felt a freedom I didn't know was possible, because finally my body wasn't rejecting the very things I was asking the universe for. When safety becomes your foundation, manifestation becomes your expansion. 3. The abandonment wound. If I grow, I'll lose love. This wound forms in childhood when connection feels conditional. It teaches you love is fragile, approval must be protected, don't change too much or you'll lose people. So as an adult, you may unconsciously dim your light to stay connected. This wound makes you fear that if you succeed, you'll make others uncomfortable. If you grow, you'll outgrow your family or friends. If you rise, people will leave. If you thrive, you'll be alone at the top. And without realizing it, you start rejecting opportunities, delaying success, sabotaging love, or minimizing your achievements. Not because you don't want them, but because you're terrified of losing the relationships that make you feel safe. This wound was one of the hardest for me. There were moments in my journey where I felt myself shrinking, not because I lacked ability, but because I didn't want to be too much. I didn't want to trigger jealousy. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want anyone to feel left behind. But healing this wound taught me something life-changing. The people who are meant for your future will never abandon you for growing, and the ones who do were never aligned with your highest path. When you release the abandonment wound, your manifestation frequency becomes clean. No fear, no guilt, no emotional debt to the past, just expansion. 3. How these childhood wounds become your adult reality and how they block your manifestations. It's almost unsettling how silently childhood wounds continue shaping a person's adult life. Not because they're loud, dramatic, or obvious, but because they operate underneath everything. Your choices, your reactions, your expectations, your relationships, and especially your manifestation frequency. Childhood wounds don't stay in childhood. They travel with you, living in your nervous system, defining what feels safe, possible, and normal. And this is where people get stuck. The mind tries to manifest a new reality, but the body is still loyal to the old one. What actually happens is that emotional trauma becomes a pattern, a predictable energetic loop. The nervous system learns what kind of experiences it should expect, and then, almost like a magnet, it keeps pulling in situations that match its familiarity, even if they hurt. That's why someone who grew up with chaos often recreates chaos. Someone who grew up being ignored picks partners who don't show up. Someone who grew up with scarcity keeps finding themselves in financial survival mode, no matter how hard they try to move forward. The body doesn't recreate what is good for you. It recreates what is familiar. And this is where manifestation gets blocked, not from lack of desire, but from internal conflict. Your adult mind says, I want abundance, love, stability, opportunity. Your childhood imprint whispers, but that doesn't feel familiar, it feels unsafe. So your frequency becomes divided, inconsistent, and emotionally unstable. Let me share something personal, because this is the part where so many people begin to realize the deeper truth. Manifestation is not about what you consciously want. It's about what your nervous system unconsciously expects. For a long time, I couldn't understand why I would get close to something good, money, love, recognition, and suddenly everything inside me would tighten. Opportunities slipped away, relationships became uncomfortable, financial breakthroughs collapsed before they could stabilize. On the surface, it just looked like bad luck or wrong timing, but inside, something older was operating. I had childhood experiences where receiving attention wasn't safe, where asking for what I needed created tension, where stability never stayed. My system learned good things don't last. Don't get too comfortable. Don't trust the moment you feel seen. I didn't know it then, but this became an energetic signature I carried into adulthood. Every time life offered me something greater, my body went into alert mode. Not because it was wrong, but because it was unfamiliar. This is how childhood wounds transform into adult identity. 1. Trauma becomes emotion. 2. Emotion becomes behavior. 3. Behavior becomes identity. 4. Identity becomes frequency. And your frequency is what manifests your reality. Someone with a worthiness wound doesn't just believe they don't deserve more, they feel undeserving on a somatic level. So when abundance shows up, they push it away, undercharge, shrink, overgive, or sabotage opportunities. Their mind wants prosperity, but their body is allergic to receiving.
Someone with a safety wound might say they want success, but every time it approaches, the nervous system panics. They procrastinate, freeze, stay busy but not productive, or stay in low-paying work because their body associates visibility or financial expansion with danger. Someone with an abandonment wound keeps attracting emotionally unavailable people, not because they want to suffer, but because their system is rehearsing an old pattern. Their inner child learned, love leaves, closeness hurts, so any relationship that feels real, steady, and secure triggers fear. They pull away, question everything, or attach to the wrong person to reenact what once felt familiar. These patterns don't feel like choices. They feel like personality, but they're not. They're learned survival strategies your inner child built to stay safe. And here's what most people never realize. Manifestation does not respond to thoughts alone. It responds to coherence between thought and emotion. When your thoughts say yes, but your body says no, the universe receives the frequency of the no. That's why so many people watch hours of manifestation videos, repeat affirmations, visualize their dream life, and nothing changes, because their emotions are still anchored to the past. They're thinking about the future, but vibrating from childhood. Maybe you'll see yourself in this. Imagine a child who grows up hearing constant arguments about money. That child develops a nervous system always waiting for instability. Years later, as an adult, they might finally earn more and suddenly feel anxious when things are going well. They overspend, avoid looking at their bank account, or get overwhelmed by the responsibility of having more. Not because they're irresponsible, but because stability feels foreign. The body tries to restore the familiar vibration of scarcity. Or think about a child who felt invisible. As an adult, they may dream about success, being seen, being recognized, but every time the spotlight gets close, they panic, they hide, they minimize themselves, they reject opportunities that would elevate them, because being seen triggers the wound where visibility once equaled vulnerability. And then there's love. The child who learned that love meant inconsistency grows into an adult who confuses intensity with intimacy. They become attracted to people who can't show up because their body says, "This feels like home. This is the dynamic I know." These tiny, subtle imprints influence everything. They dictate whether you trust yourself, whether you trust life, whether you trust receiving. And yes, they determine your manifestation frequency more than any affirmation ever will. When I finally understood this in my own journey, things began to shift. Not because I forced myself to think positive thoughts, but because I learned to meet the parts of me that were stuck in past versions of myself, parts that never felt safe to expand, to receive, or to be fully seen. When those parts healed, my manifestations stopped collapsing. Opportunities stayed, love stayed, money stayed, because I stayed with myself. This is the truth most people never hear. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what your nervous system is calibrated for. Healing childhood wounds isn't just emotional work. It's manifestation work. It's nervous system work. It's frequency work. It's identity work. And once the body stops expecting the past, the future finally has room to arrive. 4. Rewriting the frequency. How to heal childhood wounds and manifest from a new identity. When you finally understand that your adult reality is shaped by the emotional signatures of your childhood, something powerful happens. You stop blaming yourself and you start reclaiming your power. Healing your childhood wounds isn't about excavating the past for pain. It's about liberating the body from living in survival. It's about choosing a new identity, so your frequency no longer recreates the same patterns over and over. If your past shaped who you became, your conscious presence can shape who you will be. Healing begins with recognition. The very moment you identify the wound, whether it's worthiness, safety, or abandonment, you interrupt the unconscious loop that has been running your life. You bring light to a part of you that was acting in the dark. And once there is awareness, you can reprogram the emotion, the behavior, and the identity that were created from it. 1. identifying the emotion rooted in childhood. Every wound has an emotional anchor. Worthiness wounds are rooted in shame and inadequacy. Safety wounds are rooted in fear and instability. Abandonment wounds are rooted in loneliness and hypervigilance. You heal when you observe the emotion as it appears today, not by judging it, but by asking, how old is this feeling? Most people don't realize that the fear they feel at 30, 40, 50 is actually the fear of a 5-year-old inside them. The nervous system is timeless. It doesn't know the difference between past and present. It only knows sensation. So when you identify the age of the emotion, you begin separating who you were from who you are. And that separation is the first step to freedom. 2. Releasing the body from survival mode. The greatest block to manifestation is not the mind, it's the body stuck in survival. When your nervous system is in fight, flight, or freeze, your electromagnetic field becomes chaotic. Your thoughts lose power. Your energy becomes incoherent. You cannot attract a future you don't feel safe receiving. And many adults are living with survival patterns learned decades ago. What releases this survival state? Presence, breath, awareness, allowing the body to feel without running away. When you stop fighting your emotions and instead meet them with compassion, the body finally learns that the danger has passed. The inner child finally learns that you are here now, and the nervous system begins to rewire itself from protection to expansion. Techniques to reprogram your vibration. Here are practices aligned with Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings, explained in an emotional, accessible, and deeply transformative way. Check. Somatic visualization. Instead of imagining your future only with your mind, you learn to feel it with your body. Close your eyes and imagine the version of you who is healed. How does your breathing change? How does your chest feel? How much space do you take up? What sensation emerges when you picture yourself receiving what you desire? This is embodiment. This is frequency in motion. The body doesn't respond to imagination. It responds to felt experience. Check. Inner child connection. The inner child is not a metaphor. It is a real emotional imprint living inside you.
When you sit with the little version of yourself in meditation, when you listen, validate, and offer safety, you rewrite the emotional meaning attached to your memories. Suddenly, the adult you becomes the protector the child never had. And when the child feels safe, the adult becomes powerful. Guided self-compassion. Self-compassion isn't softness, it's regulation. It's how you shift your electromagnetic field from contraction to coherence. Place a hand on your chest and say, I see you. I hear you. You are safe with me. Do this whenever your survival patterns activate. Slowly, your body learns to relax into expansion instead of shrinking into fear. Energetic identity shift. You cannot manifest a future while vibrating like your past, so the question becomes, who do I choose to be now? Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Ask yourself, how does the healed version of me walk? How does she breathe? What does she tolerate? And what does she no longer entertain? What is her frequency? Identity is energy, and identity is destiny. Heart coherence. The heart has an electromagnetic field 5,000 times stronger than the brain. When you breathe slowly, focusing your attention on the heart, gratitude, safety, love, you create coherence. The body relaxes, the mind aligns, and the field around you becomes ordered, magnetic, and receptive. Coherence is the bridge between intention and manifestation. 4. Creating a frequency that matches the future, not the past. When your thoughts are elevated, but your emotions are anchored in old pain, manifestation cannot occur. But when your thoughts and emotions enter coherence, when your body and mind finally agree, your frequency becomes irresistible.
Healing childhood wounds is the process of recalibrating your emotional signature, so your future has space to enter. You stop rehearsing the old story. You stop recreating old patterns. You stop vibrating like the person who was hurt, and you start vibrating like the person who is ready. This is where manifestation becomes natural, not forced. 5. A short 2-minute practice your audience can try today. Close your eyes. Place a hand over the center of your chest. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Now imagine the little version of you, the child who felt unworthy, unsafe, or alone. See their face. See their posture. Feel their emotion. Whisper internally, "You're safe now. I'm here. You don't have to protect me anymore." Feel your breath soften. Feel your chest warm. This is healing. This is coherence. This is rewriting your frequency at the deepest level. Now imagine your future self, the healed version, the abundant version, the loved and deserving version. Let their energy blend with yours. Let your body memorize this new sensation. Breathe. Stay here. This is your new identity being born. If this resonated with you, share in the comments. Which childhood wound did you recognize, and what part of it are you ready to heal? Your comment might help someone else see their own truth, and together we create a space of awareness, healing, and transformation.